Hey Ryan, Mr. McConaughey here. Wanted to go over the problems here that I sent to your mom. Here are the first five, and these were just reviews. Um, the old chapter one never goes away type problems. Okay, just to make sure that you're doing these correctly. These are so important. So again, our rule. Think about the rules. If they're the same sign, keep the sign, add the numbers. Keep the sign, add the numbers. If they're different signs, keep the sign of the larger number, the absolute value, and subtract the numbers. Okay, so we'll see how this works. So number one, 9 minus 12. Different signs. Keep the sign of the larger number. Which number is larger? The 12. Just forget the sign at that point. So we're going to keep a negative and subtract the numbers. What's 12 minus 9? 12 minus 9 is 3. So our answer is negative 3. Next one, negative 7 minus 5. So here our numbers are the same sign. So keep the sign, add the numbers. 7 plus 5 is 12. Okay, negative 15 plus 20, different signs. Keep the sign of the bigger number. What's the bigger number? 20. So that's the positive one. So 20 minus 15 is 5. And you could certainly write negative 15 plus 20 as 20 minus 15. Same problem. Okay? 18 minus 20. Keep the sign of the larger number, the negative 20, so we'll keep negative. 20 minus 18 is 2. And negative 3 minus 8, same signs, keep the sign, add the numbers. 3 plus 8, 11. Okay, so there are your answers for that. Hopefully you got those. If you're not sure, maybe have Mom make some problems up for you and you can do some additional practice, okay? Okay, here are, now we're going to do the one-step equations. And remember, the goal is always to get your variable term, and I use x all the time, you know that. Get the variable term by itself. Okay, so we look at the x minus 7 equals negative 10. How are we going to get the x term by itself? Well, we need to move this constant to the other side of the equation. How are we going to get rid of that negative 7? We're going to add 7 and add 7 to both sides. Remember, when you're doing these, always do the operation immediately on both sides of the equation. That's the number one error I see, is that someone will do it on one side and they forget to do it on the other. So these cancel. I've got x equals, what's negative 10 plus 7? Let's see. What's the sign? Different signs. Keep the sign of the larger, so it's negative. 10 minus 7 is 3. So the answer is x equals negative 3. Hopefully you remember this after we were going over these last week. All right, next problem. X plus 9 equals 14. I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. Those go away. And I have x equals, what's 14 minus 9? 5. Okay? Okay, so I threw a little wrinkle into this one. I suppose this is actually a two-step because of the negative x, but hopefully you figure out what to do. Let's go ahead, take care of the constant first, do the opposite. It's a plus 3, so now we're going to subtract 3. And I've got negative x equals 3. All right, negative x equals 3. If negative x equals 3, a couple ways you can do this. You can just say, oh, I'm going to switch the signs. That and x equals negative 3. That's reasonable. I suppose a more proper way of doing this would be to divide by negative 3 and have x equals negative 3, like that. Either way, the shortcut here that I did, that's definitely a shortcut when you see that, to switch the signs, and hopefully we'll be at a point here quickly early in the year where you can just do that. All right, next problem. And the last of the one step is number 9. Whoops, let me turn my pencil back on there. Number 9, x plus 4 equals 8. This is a really simple one. I know you could look at this and just tell me the answer is 4, but we have to remember that you're going to have to show your work, okay? X equals 4. That's a pretty easy one, and I know you would look at it and say, oh, well, x is 4. But go ahead, show your work. On simpler things like this, we're going to get to a point fairly quickly where you won't have to show each of these steps. But boy, you better make sure that you're right, okay? All right, let's go on to the 2 steps. Okay, 2-step equations, and hence there are 2 steps before we solve them. Now, the one thing that I see an awful lot is everybody wants to immediately divide by 3. No, that's your last step that you do. The first step that you do is always to clear your constants first. So let's subtract 6 from both sides. Those cancel. I've got 3x equals 5. Now what do? Yes, I divide both sides by 3. So x equals 5/3. Are you done? Well, I can't reduce 5/3 anymore, can I? Right? 3 doesn't go into 5. So yes, I'm done, because remember, we still love improper fractions. So make sure you do that. You don't have to convert it to 1 2/3. I guess you can, but I don't know why you'd want to do that. Let's just keep x equal 5/3 is the answer. Number 11, negative 2x minus 8 equals negative 4. Gosh, a lot of negative signs on this one, huh? All right, once again, do we divide by negative 2? Well, we will eventually, but let's get rid of the constant first. Okay, so our constants go away. I bring down negative 2x equals, what's 8 minus 4? 8 minus 4 is 4. Now I divide both sides by negative 2. Okay, so I'm left with x equals, what's 4 divided by negative 2? Positive and negative is a negative. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X equals negative 2. All right, next. Number 12. X over 3 plus 7 equals negative 2. Now, I threw a little wrench in here by putting this as a fraction. What's the other way I could write this? I could write this as 1/3 times x. That would work also. What's the first step, Ryan? No, it's not multiplying by 3. It's going to be subtract 7 from both sides. So I've got x over 3, these cancel, equals, what's negative 2 minus 7? Keep the sign, add the numbers. Now I multiply both sides by 3. Those cancel, and I'm left with x equals 3 times negative 9 is negative 27. Okay, again, if you're not sure of this, go back, rework the problem, anything like that. We'll talk about these next time we get together. Number 13. Fairly similar to what we just did. 4/3 x equals 6. Now, the one thing here, I want to make sure when I write 4/3 x, this x belongs to the 4. Okay, this is the same as writing 4x over 3. It is not the same as 4 over 3x. Okay, I want to make sure this is how we're treating it. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully you remember that. I know we talked a lot about that last year. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. And now, there's two ways that we can do this. We can divide both sides by 4/3. Okay? What if I do this? Divide both sides by 4/3. So that goes away, and I've got x equals, how do I handle this? when I divide by a fraction, I copy dot flip. So I've got 4 times 3 over 4. The 6 is my copy, dot, and then flip the 4/3 to 3/4, and I'm left with 18/4. Am I done? Not quite. I have to reduce. What's a common factor between 18 and 4? Obviously 2. 2 goes into 18, 9 times 2 goes into 4, 2 times. So I've got x equals 9/2. Now, that's not my favorite way of doing this problem. Okay, so I'm going to show you another way to do it. Let's go ahead and rewrite this again. 4/3 x equals 6. I really much prefer, let me get rid of it, get that out of the way, 13 up here. I much prefer doing the multiplication and division separately. Okay, so I would multiply both sides by 3. So the 3's cancel. I'm left with 4x equals 18. Now I divide both sides by 4, and I've got x equals 18/4 or 9/2. So I get the same answer. I think most students will find this a little more straightforward. They don't have to remember the copy dot flip and get the other fraction in the right places. You do it like this: multiply by 3, divide by 4. Now, is there one more way to do this? Yes. Let's go ahead and just do that real quick for you. I would have 4/3 x equals 6. Now, my third way of doing this was, the clue was just how I said that last problem. I could multiply by 3 and then divide by 4. So I could write this like this. Multiply by 3/4 on both sides. Don't really need that dot there. Right? My 3's cancel, my 4's cancel, and I've got x equals 18/4 or 9/2. So I end up with the same answer any way you do that. You've got to find one that's going to work for you, that you can do the exact same way all the time. Okay? And if you want to talk about that some more, we can do that. I don't want to show you 3 different ways and then you actually doing it 3 different ways. I want you to pick one of these that works for you. Okay? So I'll see you in a couple days, and I hope you're having a good week.